Hi everyone, it is November 7, 2019. I should never check my email before starting a video because so much is happening. And yes, subscribers send me very important information. So I'm just going to highlight the information that was sent to me. Go back to my original video. Everything is collapsing. Let me just say everything is collapsing. All systems, all institutions. Yeah, the economy, it's coming down. Either this year or next year, it's coming down. Yeah, and it's unfortunate that an awful lot of people are still supporting Trump. And he's making you a scapegoat. Unfortunately. Well, I'll get into that a little bit more, but first I want to show you, this was sent to me by a subscriber whom I'd like to thank. Are you noticing people going crazy around you and physical effects in your own body and mind? Here's one of the reasons. The frequency of the magnetic field of Earth is changing. This is indeed unusual for many reasons. I'm just going to read a little bit about a little bit from this, but I will be posting a video on this because frequencies, wow, on radar, on the mimic map, on, well, so many sites. They're not hiding anything. These are artificial frequencies that are unfortunately causing an awful lot of problems with all life. People who have the exact same body clock frequency as the magnetic energy fields will begin to have trouble in their bodies and also potentially lose control of various nerve-related functions. This is another new reality which people must now face, but again, it is just another topic no one cares about or wants to talk about. This means the planet-wide things are indeed happening. Planet-wide things are indeed happening. Yes, they sure are. Also, it is very interesting that many of the unusual earthquakes are triggering on the clock boundaries of the magnetic resonance frequency changes in perfect time with the changes. You know, look, there's an awful lot of people who believe it's Planet X or it's, a plasma, I can't even remember what the terms are. But they do not factor in man's use of electromagnetic frequencies. I don't understand that, but it is happening. I also want to, this is another subscriber, actually I had several subscribers send me this video, Food System Collapsing, Actively, Rapidly, Urgent Warning. So you can click below, watch Ice Age Farmer. It's all collapsing, guys, and it ain't gonna be pretty at all. So let's just go back to the economy. Global economy paralyzed in low growth trap as QE can't ward off next crisis. Okay, the world is on the brink of a global trade recession. Week by week, economic data from Asia, Europe, and US continues to decelerate despite central banks lowering interest rates and expanding balance sheets by printing money. Nothing at the moment seems to be working. So the former governor of the Bank of England, Mervyn King, recognizes that the global economic slowdown is happening because monetary policy isn't the answer. And I have to agree with this statement. Central bankers, they always wait until they quit their jobs before they come out with the truth. And yes, Mervyn King is just one of them. The Great Depression was followed by political upheaval and in economics an intellectual revolution. This time around, we've got the political turmoil, but no comparable questioning of the ideas underpinning economic policy. Yeah. Yada, 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 yada. All right. We've got a lot of political turmoil. This economy is coming down. Trump may be playing the role of scapegoat. Unfortunately, he's going to be bringing in all Trump supporters with him. So, yeah, that printing of money. Here, it's so reliant have markets become on monetary expansion that the default assumption is that an economy will always be rescued from recession by easing of monetary policy, and doesn't work, right? Because all of this is deliberate. And yes, the world is a stage, and that reality presented to us is a fabricated reality, and they keep changing that reality, and then we keep, running after the reality that they fabricate and present to us, trying to figure out what the hell they're doing, and then they change it again and change it again, and we keep running after this fabricated reality. Life is really simple, and all of this is really simple. They're bringing down the global economy to crash the old world order, to bring in the new world order, and it's coming soon. So, the European Central Bank doing the same thing that our central bank is doing. For 5 years, the ECB, that's the European Central Bank, has applied negative interest rates on commercial bank reserves, and commercial banks have paid 21.4 billion euros into deposit interest. Since it introduced negative interest rates, it has injected some 2.7 trillion euros of base money into the Eurozone economy, increasing M1, I guess that's our the equivalent of our QE, increasing M1, the narrower measure of the money quantity, by 61%. Almost all of it has supported the finances of the governments in the Eurozone. The effect on broader money, which includes bank credit, has been to increase M3 by 30%. Far from stimulation, this is daylight robbery perpetrated on everyone's liquidity and cash deposits. It is tax on the purchasing power of the wages of the consumer. The European Central Bank is not alone. Since Lehman went under, the major central banks have collectively increased their balance sheets from 7 trillion to 19.4 trillion. Wow. Highway robbery is what we live. That's an increase of 177%. Most of this monetary expansion has been to buy government bonds, providing a money fountain for governments. The purpose of money printing is always to finance government spending, not to stimulate or ease conditions for the private sector. While some trusting souls in the system believe it is for the latter, it's a myth. It is to make ultra cheap borrowing for governments, to encourage banks to expand credit in the government's favor. Just listen to the central bankers now encouraging governments to take the opportunity to ease fiscal policy, extend their debts, borrow even more. This perpetual money creation, who pays for it? The consumer, the wage earner, the people who can't afford it. They rob by compounding interest, pension funds. The very same people who, in a bizarre twist of macroeconomic logic, we're told would benefit from having the prices of everyday purchases increase. We're listening all over the world The people in countries are listening to the most inane so-called logic, and they're just accepting it all. They're not thinking. They're not thinking. Why aren't people thinking? Could it have anything to do with frequencies? People going crazy around you? Okay, the title of this article: Central bank stimulus is really a huge redistribution scheme. And what is it? It's taking money from the 99%, handing it to the 1%, and just printing money and handing it over to banks, corporations, governments. It never filters down to the ordinary citizen. It never helps Main Street, but it always helps Wall Street. Ooh, you ready? Central banks out of ammo. United Nations head, Secretary General Antonio Guterres, demands immediate fiscal stimulus to save world from crisis. Oh yeah, we're going down. Economic crisis, global. It's going to be bad. So, what is this guy saying? Wait. Unbelievable. He's saying that, and this was at the World Bank Group and International Monetary Fund annual meeting in Washington, D.C., and it was, just a little while ago. This was October 20, 2019. There he is. But the United Nations, World Bank, International Monetary Fund, they all work together. And, well, what he called a synchronized slowdown. Synchronized slowdown. Here, synchronized global slowdown with one of the weakest growth outlooks since the Lehman crisis in 2008. It's synchronized because it's all orchestrated by the central banks. So, well, actually orchestrated by one bank, which I'll get into in 1 second, but the central banks take instruction from one bank in particular. But, so, Antonio Guterres, who is a known socialist, communist dictator, in speaking at this meeting, he said during tense and testing times, he fears the possibility of a great fracture with the two largest economies splitting the globe in two, each with its own dominant currency, trade, financial rules, its own internet and artificial intelligence capacities, and its own zero-sum geopolitical and military strategies. He told international bankers that it's not too late to avoid this fracturing of the world. We must do everything possible to avert this and maintain a universal economy with universal respect for international law. Please. Gag me with a spoon, should I say? Countries that violate international law all the time, United States, UK, Israel, other countries. Do you ever hear anything from this guy about the flagrant, blatant violations of international law by those countries? No, he never says anything. So all of what you hear from the so-called leaders of organizations, corporations, leaders of countries, it's all bullshit. And they're just working towards making the entire world collapse so they can institute their new world order. Yeah, why did it take as long as it has? Because they needed all of the infrastructure in place. And 5G was part of that infrastructure. Well, they're working around the clock to get that 5G ready. And when they are ready, they will trigger collapses, unprecedented, like we have. Everything will change. Everything will change. Life as you know it will just never be again. This is what Guterres said to government officials and bankers. You ready? Yeah. They must conduct 3 fiscal policies in the 2020s to save the world economy. First, modernize their tax system that are smarter, greener, and more aligned behind the sustainable development and climate action agendas. Oh, couldn't be more obvious. Second, he said global financial markets must incentivize long-term investing in programs that address poverty, inequality, climate, environmental degradation, prosperity, peace, justice. And third, it is time to break the cycle of excessive debt buildup, followed by painful debt crises. Yeah, we will break that cycle, because the debt economies have only helped the very rich. The debt economies have hurt 99%. And that will all end when they have so destroyed the 99%. And that economic crash, before it happens, they're going to be stealing everything they possibly can from you. From you. So, wow. So, October 10, Fed approves rules loosening Dodd-Frank bank restrictions. Yeah, under Trump's order. Isn't it interesting? Congress, the role of Congress was, well, they draft the legislation and they pass the legislation, and then the president signs it and executes. Now, the executive office executes the laws. But who makes the laws? Congress. But we have seen presidents writing law, executive orders, and if they're not writing the law, then they write executive orders to repeal legislation that came out of Congress. We don't have a government anymore. It's gone. It does not operate the way governments operate. If you just watch it, we don't have 3 branches of government. How many videos? God, I can't tell you how many videos I posted early on when I was on YouTube during the Obama years. Obama is usurping congressional power, and they're letting him do it. Letting him do it. Okay. Because we do not have that government. What we have is a corporation for profit. Oh, check out our federal agencies. You know, that Department of Education, for profit. And boy, are they making a huge profit. A huge profit off the backs of college students, those student loans. Okay. So, Trump loosening Dodd-Frank bank restrictions, when what we are seeing and what so many people are talking about now is there is no way to stop the next crash. Well, Trump is part of the crash. And yeah, he may very well have been put into the White House to take the blame, to be the scapegoat for this crash. Yep, and he's going to bring with him as scapegoats those who support him. Half the world's banks won't survive the next crisis. It's obviously disturbing. Mortgage market reopens. Okay, what the hell happened? This is November 5. November 5. But Trump, well, he loosened those restrictions, which frankly didn't protect and I posted videos on this, Dodd-Frank. I mean, it was a joke, and everybody was calling for the restoring of Glass-Steagall Act, that was the banking, I think it was called the Banking Reform Act or something. It came right after the crash in 1929, I think in 1933. 33, interesting. Glass-Steagall was the act that separated investment and commercial banks. So you just go to have a checking account and a savings account. Well, those banks could not invest your money recklessly. And who? Yeah, it was Clinton that repealed the Glass-Steagall Act. Yes, there is no two parties. There's one party. They work together. But the Glass-Steagall Act, it prevented banks from investing your deposits. It was like a firewall put in place to prevent another major crash. Clinton repeals it. You got that crash in 2008. And nobody in Congress, presidents campaigned on the restoration of Glass-Steagall, just kind of like Elizabeth Warren, who doesn't say, I don't know if she said anything about Glass-Steagall. She did about 6 or 7 years ago. Oh, Glass-Steagall, it's got to be restored, got to be restored, got to be restored. And I think during her campaign, or maybe as she was senator, she was talking about a new Glass-Steagall. Well, none of these people in Congress, none of these people in the White House are out to fight for your best interest. They fight for the bankers, for Wall Street, for corporations. And it's obvious. Now, Trump actually did. Here, in this 2017, it was March 2017, Trump remains committed to Glass-Steagall banking separation. This is a reporter asking Trump's then press secretary, who doesn't really talk about Glass-Steagall, but this reporter asks about Glass-Steagall. At the very end, the reporter says, so he comes back and says, is Trump committed to Glass-Steagall? And then you hear a very quick yes from press secretary. And it was, yeah, he talked about regulating Wall Street and the banks and restoring that 1933 banking law. But did he do it? No. No. Robert Rubin, Treasury Secretary under President Bill Clinton. These are the people who are running the Department of Treasury. He was CEO of Citicorp, I believe, Citibank, Council on Foreign Relations member. And it was very well known. Trump, will he keep his campaign promise to reinstate Glass-Steagall? No. And it's very clear. Okay, so if you want to know about Glass-Steagall, you can check it out. Known as the Banking Act of 1933, it moved to restore confidence in the banking system after thousands of bank failures. In the first years of the Depression, prohibited banks from investing in risky securities designed to lower the risk of failure in commercial banks and help safeguard customer accounts. It also created the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. But all of this now, it's just gone. Everything is just a flippin' joke. Glass-Steagall helped reduce the risk to the government for providing this insurance. Well, a whole lot of Americans believe that they've got insurance, but years ago, it was already known. The Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, well, they were kind of in the red, and I think they are to insure 100,000 $100,000 in deposits? Well, no longer. So there's a lot of people who are still so stuck in this matrix system who are believing, well, if my bank goes, at least, I'm insured. No, you're not. You are not. Do some research and you'll find out. You are not. Okay, so Trump takes away regulation from Dodd-Frank, which was a flippin' joke, but doesn't do anything to protect against the banks failing. Oh, he did a lot of good talking about it, but hasn't put in any protections. So, and when you see this, now we're going back to subprime mortgages, and there was a subprime auto loans. How can this be? They're stealing from you. They're stealing from you. Loosening those Dodd-Frank regulations has allowed this. Give loans to people who don't have the credit score, don't have jobs. Just give loans to people. And you'll start getting you'll get whatever it is that they're putting down for that loan. You'll get payments, and then you'll get the house back when people can't afford the mortgage. Oh, everything's a scam. And it's not just happening in the United States, but here, bad loans at a big British bank jump over 50% in a year. They're going to steal everything they possibly can. They're going to raise taxes. They're going to raise the bills that you pay. Everything is going to become so expensive. They're going to gut you and then bring about that crash. And you'll be on your knees. And the only option that you'll have is to just listen to the saviors who step in. It will be those who brought about the crash, and they'll come out pretending we're going to save you. So this was written back in 2013. It's a very good article. If you don't understand what happened in 2008 and that bailout, and the bailout that's taking place right now, you have to wonder, that Dodd-Frank, well, he's loosening some of the regulations, but he didn't repeal Dodd-Frank. And in Dodd-Frank, there's a bail-in. A bail-in. Negative interest rates, which are coming. Suddenly, the banks, you will deposit $100, and that'll cost you $10. But that bail-in, oh boy, those big banks, they're too big to fail. What are we going to do? We've got to steal the money of our depositors in order for the bank not to completely fail. That's coming. So did Trump? Since Trump, he's clearly able to just, well, I don't like this legislation that Congress passed and, well, the last president signed, so I'm just going to rewrite it and get rid of some of the provisions, which is not how our government works. Great constitutional violation right there. But did he get rid of the bail-in? No. So he ain't protecting you. He's all about his friends, the elite, the bankers, making sure that they are okay. So I will link below to everything. And yeah, we did nothing. We don't hold anybody accountable. The amount of money paid to banks, executives, and to shareholders. Who cares? Audit the Federal Reserve. It was a joke, that audit that happened a couple of years ago. But, oh, right. I think Trump also said audit the Federal Reserve. Well, that never came to pass. There were so many crimes committed by banks, but, well, were they ever sentenced to jail? Were they ever arrested? The bank executives, the shareholders, they were getting tons of money. That bailout was supposed to be helping Main Street. Didn't, but it sure did help Wall Street. No major bank even had their license withdrawn. For example, Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo commits crimes. It's been phenomenal. So, Wells Fargo ranks fourth in the United States in terms of stock market capitalization and control on the bank market. Was allowed to continue operating even though a U.S. court had concluded that its executives had knowingly incited their employees to open 1,300,000 fictitious bank accounts in order to increase the bank's profits, thanks to bank charges levied on each customer. The bank merely paid a fine. No executives were sentenced to jail. We hold no one accountable. When you hold no one accountable, well, life then turns into one hell of a twisted nightmare that we are living right now. So, this is a very good article, and I'm going to read some of it. The Fed's liquidity response is a little too late. Too little, too late. But that was always the plan. Globalists and banking elites have been running the order out of chaos scam for a long time. Centuries, in fact. Had lots of time to tune and refine their methods for manipulating the collective psyche of the masses. They make mistakes often, but as long as no one confronts them directly and removes these people from the equation, they simply set up shop elsewhere under a different name, using different masks, and continue their insidious work as long as society is still stricken with ignorance and assumes that such conspiracies are impossible. The elites have a free hand to victimize the population further. On the positive side, I see an awakening taking place among a subset of population which is savvy to the games of the globalists. I believe this subtle wave of analytical samurai has the elites worried. They realize that time for them is, for once in history, starting to run out. One day soon, they may find themselves the direct targets of a revolution, and they don't like that idea. Wow, would I love to live to see that happen, but I don't think I will. So hence, the globalists, that's why everything is speeding up. That's why everything has accelerated. That's why we've got so much insanity going on to distract all of the drama that is played out on mainstream media, on shows like The View, the impeachment inquiry, all of it, all of it. Do you notice nothing ever gets resolved in our country? They just play out the drama forever and ever and ever because it's so easy to get Americans kind of enthralled in drama because, yeah, a lot of Americans are just drama queens. They love it, they love it, they love it. Ooh, conflict. God. So, but there are people who are waking up, and because of that, they have really just kind of pushed the metal to the floor and have sped up every agenda. The globalists need a plan, a con game of epic proportions on top of one of the largest economic bubbles in recent history. The plan relies first on a tried and true weapon of the elites, co-option of the people that oppose them. And how does one co-opt a movement? By taking over their leadership. Second, for global change, the cabal needs a global distraction or a firestorm of numerous distractions to keep the public enthralled or in fear. Third, they need to divert blame away from themselves by presenting the public with believable scapegoats. Trump, U.S.-China war. Have you seen, if you read any of these articles on economic collapse, and so many people are saying, oh, it's the United States and China, this trade war. In fact, it was our Secretary General Antonio Guterres at this meeting who was suggesting that it was these two powers, China and the United States, and the trade war that is causing economies to slow down. Why is the emphasis put on Trump and the president of China? This trade war that, oh, yet another thing that never gets resolved. They've just been fighting and fighting and fighting and no agreement. Why? Because those tariffs have really hurt, certainly the U.S. economy. That was purposeful. There was no agreement to be made. You're watching a staged play go on forever. And it's all about bringing down countries for the New World Order. So, yeah, how does one co-opt a movement? By taking over the leadership. Get a believable scapegoat. Trump. When it's all over, they want people dazed and shell-shocked, wondering how it happened, and searching for anyone to point a finger at. The narrative will be that it was a perfect storm of coincidences, that it was the evil political left or the political right. They want to turn public confusion into civil war, all while they sit back and enjoy the chaos from, their comfortable chairs. We have psychopaths. We have criminal psychopaths in government. They love to watch all of the chaos, and they sure do love to watch the success of their manipulations. Americans fighting one another. All of this, is happening already. And yeah, you have to be blind not to see it now. Disinformation agents call it doom and gloom because that is supposed to dissuade you from taking it seriously, but the facts are the facts. The U.S. economy is in steep decline. Engineered event. Federal Reserve, the better part of the past decade, inflating what we now call the everything bubble, a bubble that spreads through almost every facet of the economy, from equities to housing to GDP to employment to corporate debt, consumer debt, student loan debt, everything is debt. Jerome Powell warned back in 2012 that the markets have become addicted to federal stimulus and that any tightening of liquidity by the central bank, including cutting the balance sheet or raising interest rates, would cause sharp reversal or crash. Trump nominates him to be the head of the Fed. And what does he do when he comes in? He does exactly what he warned would cause a crash. I'll pick up in the next video about Trump being a puppet. He is a globalist, and he's crashing our economy. What scares me is that Trump supporters are going to be made a scapegoat. If they do blame this economic crash on Trump, don't be surprised if people, we've seen it already, you wear a MAGA hat and people come up and punch you in the face. You will be made the scapegoat of the economic crash. Think about that for a second. Think about how crazy Americans are already, and think about frequencies being used to make people even crazier. It might not have been a really good thing to support Trump.